Oké, normaal gezien zijn we live. Ja, ik ben al direct in het Engels begonnen, want ik heb vandaag een Engelstalige spreker, James Bampfield. Ik zet ondertussen even de video op mijn pagina ook in beeld. Waarom? Dan kan ik de comments van de live-kijkers meenemen in dit gesprek. James, ik ga starten in het Nederlands.
Ja.
En dan zien we wel, jij mag gerust in het Engels antwoorden. Geen enkel probleem. Waarschijnlijk ga ik schakelen. We gaan zien hoe dat het loopt. I have some rusty old English. Dus we zien wel. Hey, fijn dat je er bent, James. Ik stel je heel kort even voor, maar jij mag gerust aanvullen. We hebben elkaar ontmoet de periode 2005-2006, dezelfde periode dat ik ook Wouter Torfs leerde kennen. We hebben elkaar een aantal keer gezien. Ik heb ook een bijzondere ervaring meegemaakt in het kasteel van Geetbeds, waar jullie organisatie toen in de tijd ook activiteiten organiseerde. Dus ja, ik herinner mij jou als iemand heel spiritueel, heel filosofisch, maar down to earth bezig met de dingen. En ik kijk enorm uit naar ons gesprek vandaag, voor zover de introductie. Dus ik laat je graag zelf voorstellen, wie ben jij en wat doe jij?
I always find that a difficult question, introducing myself. How do I introduce myself today, anyway? Who am I today? It's probably a more accurate question. But you know, it's funny, that question, because, you know, one of my difficulties with the question, who are you? Which of course is a deep spiritual question, is I don't believe in a unified self. What I mean by that is we are multiple selves. And so I can say who I am now. And I'm not just being difficult.
I can understand what you're saying. And while you are talking about we are multiple selves, I got goosebumps. So
really? Well,
yeah, it's very nice. So do please, who are you today and in the now?
Okay. Well, what I am now is there's a self, there's a voice inside me which is a little bit nervous about the meeting, especially the technology. I'm always more nervous about the technology than the content, because I'm not so good with machines always. And there's the self that's had a very busy morning with different calls and tasks that have to be done. There's the self, the father and husband who's about to move house. So you probably know what that's like, especially after 16 years.
Right.
Managing 4 kids and so on. So there's all that. And at the same time, you know, there's what they call true self in the spiritual world. You know, so I gave my live meditation this morning, and that's much more about true self, which is the sort of transpersonal self, which is, you know, not just the narrow James with the history and the future. It's the much broader sense of self, or self with a capital S.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I would like to know more about the last version you told about James, the with the capital S. But before we go into that, I would like to know, what does spirituality means for you? Because I know there's a lot of loading on it, a lot of different meanings, a lot of negativity also, a little bit of, oh, no, I'm not spiritual. No. But there's I'm going to say it in Dutch, een dieper liggende betekenis van spiritualiteit. Dus ik ben eigenlijk heel benieuwd, wat betekent spiritualiteit voor jou?
Well, let's deal with because it'll help us understand what I mean. Let's deal with people's resistance to spirituality first. Usually that falls into two camps who are connected. There's the people who've had some sort of bad experience with organized religion, with the church, with Islam, with any of these big institutionalized religions, which, you know, as we've learned, have done some good things and done some bad things. And so some people they connect spirituality to religion, which is not a totally unreasonable association. I do distinguish between the two. So there's a start, and I'll come to that in a minute. And the other resistance you get is, you know, the dominant paradigm in society, in developed society, like ours, West societies, is in a way secular and is what they call scientific materialism, you know, which basically means the universe, the only real truth in the universe is the one that can be scientifically measured. And that's the dominant paradigm. So of course, anything spiritual is considered, you know, it belongs to some old superstitious paradigm. So you hear that a lot, you know, mensen say, ja, maar ik ben een rationele, you know, which of course makes them a very exciting person. But so those are some of the fears behind it. And so people feel, I think, partly suspicious, also sometimes threatened. You know, if you've convinced yourself that the universe is just a bunch of atoms which miraculously sort of, you know, collide with each other and creates life, and you hear someone talking about a spiritual truth, then, you know, that's a big challenge to one's worldview. Just as it's a challenge to a spiritual worldview if you hear a scientific materialist say, you know, it's all a load of rubbish. You know, if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. So those are some of the resistances. I think in a way, if you have put it this way, if you have a spiritual perspective on life, you are saying that it is more than a bunch of atoms. That there is three things really, that life is more coherent than it looks. It's more mysterious than it looks. And it's actually better than it looks. Which is different. These are three big claims, especially the last one, that it's better than it looks. You know, because in a way, the world looks a mess. And there's huge amounts of suffering of various kinds. So how can there be a spiritual reality? It's the old question. How can there be a God, you know, when there's so much unnecessary suffering in the world? An all-loving, all-powerful God. So the modern form of that question still remains. But for me, the heart of spirituality is what you could call mysticism, in the sense of it's a genuine spiritual experience. It's not so much an ideology, which is where the direction religion went, which was very useful for creating social coherence, because a lot of millions of people signed up to the same beliefs and values, which had some great benefit.
And they got power, and then if you receive power of the people and you do not know how to handle it in a spiritual way, it can turn you to the side of the control.
Control, yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Like any big institution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see there are some live viewers, so I would like to invite them to say hi. And if you have some questions, als je vragen hebt of een opmerking of je hebt een toevoeging of iets raakt jou, zet het gerust in de comments. Je kan het in het Nederlands zetten, je mag het ook in het Engels zetten. En dan deel ik het heel graag met James. Daarom dat ik ook even af en toe wegkijk, omdat ik het meevolg op mijn telefoon. En ook voor de replay-kijkers, vul gerust aan, voeg toe. En we nemen het heel graag mee in het vervolg.
Ja.
Dus dit
En
zijn...
Nederlands is ook goed. Ik heb ook rusty old Nederlands. En she's rusty new Nederlands. So
let's mix the language. We can overstijgen. We kunnen het overstijgen. The barrier of language. No?
Exactly.
But you were going to tell us about what's the heart of spiritualism for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is the mystical experience.
Yeah.
It's the transcendental experience on the one hand. That there is something bigger, mm-hmm. something deeper, which you can actually experience. Of course, it remains a deeply subjective experience. So in that sense, there is very little objective evidence, if you like. But of course, many people have had these experiences. So there's a certain, what we call intersubjective level of truth around it. Yeah. I mean, what I put in my my Spirituality for Today podcast was that I divide my view of spirituality into three aspects. That's waking up, growing up, and showing up. Mm-hmm. That's nice. How I see spirituality for today.
Yeah. Yeah, I've listened some of your podcasts, so yeah, it's nice. It's nice. And I like the three phases you're saying. Ja, bewust worden, wakker worden, erin groeien en dan het zijn, het zichtbaar maken, het leven, het tonen. En dat brengt me eigenlijk naar het volgende. Dit is een interviewreeks naar spirituele ondernemers. Een soort van onderzoek van... voor mij, spiritualiteit begint eigenlijk al met je eigen waarden en normen. Hoe sta jij in de wereld? Hoe laat jij jezelf zien? Wat vind jij belangrijk? En als je dat meeneemt in je bedrijf, in je onderneming, dan ben je, voor mij althans, toch al met spiritualiteit bezig. Tot aan de andere extreme mensen die spirituele gaven hebben, wat jij benoemt van spiritualiteit. Je kan het ervaren. Mensen hebben, een aantal ondernemers hebben daar gaven in en zetten dat neer in hun bedrijf. En ik ben benieuwd, wat doe jij? Want ik voel wel dat jij ademt spiritualiteit, je bent spiritualiteit. Je gebruikt dat ook in jouw onderneming en eigenlijk ondernemingen. Er is Quinks en er is jouw podcast, Spirituality for Today. Waar zit jij op die lijn? Waar bevind jij je? En hoe kan jij een bedrijf voeren en toch spiritualiteit ook ruimte geven?
Well, I mean, in a way I'm lucky because my business is, about spreading spirituality. So I'm lucky. So, most of my work is giving workshops to leaders, to teams, various groups of people. Where I can help them wake up, grow up, and show up. So I decided at a fairly early age, my work and my spiritual values, perspective, practices had to come pretty close together. It's a very natural fit. But, a guy called me this morning who's looking for coaching. And he is in a investment what do you call it? Not an investment bank, with a group, a private equity group. And, they invest, what is it? They have a budget of 2 billion euros, which they invest, get majority stakes in medium-sized companies. And his spiritual sort of yearning is just beginning. And he's saying, I feel that personally, but, God, I wonder how I'm going to apply that in this very hard financial world in which he exists. And, that's not easy. That is a challenge. For sure, it's possible.
It is possible? You think so?
I do. I cannot believe that you could fully integrate one's spirituality into one's business life if one has a single bottom line of making money.
Mm-hmm.
Because that in itself is simply not spiritual, in the sense that there's no depth. Spirituality for me is about depth. It's like you said, your deepest values, your deepest longing, your deepest sense of purpose. And making money, I think even that the hardest nosed businessman would agree that making money in itself is not necessarily the most profound motivation. It doesn't mean say it can't motivate people. Of course it can. But when you ask people, well, what is most dear to you? Most people do not say money.
Mm-hmm.
Some probably. So you need to find a way to have more than that single bottom line, where the people are important, the planets, that level of purpose, I think is vital.
And how about the opposite? Because I met some spiritual entrepreneurs that are saying to me, but I have a gift. How can I ask money for my gift? Because it's something, but if you want to make business here on earth, you need money. So that's the opposite side. What can you tell about some advice or something about that?
But I think implicit in that is a suspicion and a judgment about money.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with money. It's just that in itself, it's not. I mean, it doesn't. Money only means something because we've given some meaning to it. But it's just as my original teachers said, money is just energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a form of energy, and it's that grounded. Money's okay because I do think it's in a way connected to the earth. In the tarot cards, there are the 4 suits.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what they're called in Netherlands, but they're in English. There's one called the Pentacles, which is in the shape of coins.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about money is in a way brings us down to earth, because we can have all the great spiritual dreams we want, but in the life as we have it now, you need money to survive. So I have no problem at all charging money for spiritual services.
Yeah, it's also linked by self-esteem, no?
Right. If money is a system of value, then I guess asking for money is a way of valuing yourself. Yeah, that's right. But I must say, but that could be, it could also be my limitations. I've noticed I'm reluctant to charge a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's to do with my self-esteem or lack of it. I've got friends, I have friends in California, the coaches. I mean, they won't hesitate to charge $4,000 or $5,000 a day. I think, whoa, that's beyond me. I just don't think I could feel comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, nice. yeah, I'm still thinking about the three phases at the awakening, growing, and showing. I like those words.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really staying in the back of my mind. So yeah, because in a way it also has a link with my work I'm doing. Is about uh, having more impact of your message by being heard. But if you want to be heard, you have to be seen also.
Right. Well, that's the showing up.
Yeah.
So what I'm suggesting is that this is not an appropriate time to keep our spiritual process completely private.
Yeah, the time of being closed doors, the time of being afraid to be burned at the houtstapel as the witches in the time. It's behind us. It's okay to be yourself in what your belief systems are, and yeah, in being who you are. But it is still frightening. I am in the process of showing myself as a spiritual being. Okay, I'm doing interviews, but I like to give the word at the other person. It's nice to ask questions, and sometimes I show a little bit of myself, but it's still, I can feel the weight of the ages gone by of, yeah, you can show, it's time to show up. So I'm really curious what you're gonna say about it.
Right. Well, I mean, of course, you can still get sort of trolled online. Maybe that's not as bad as being burnt at the stake, but it's not. I do feel in showing up there is a need, and it doesn't have to be explicitly.
Mm.
Showing up doesn't have to mean, "Hey, I'm a spiritual person." It means standing up for something and being able to stick your neck out,
Mm.
take a risk. Okay, it's probably not a life or death risk, or not in our society. There are still societies in the world where it's a life or death risk, but it's not the way it was before. And I think the other reason for showing up is not just because it's a bit safer, but because I think there is a certain urgency.
Okay, tell.
I mean, the world is in a very problematic position at the moment. So the level of existential risk for the planet is at a place that it has never been before. Whether that's to do with climate, or there's all sorts of areas of risk. It doesn't mean people have got worse, not at all. I think if anything, they've probably got better. But the fact, because the planet has changed so much technologically, that has put it, it's had a lot of positive effects, but it's also put new pressures
Mm-hmm.
on the world which didn't exist before, particularly
Right.
with the climate, but also economically. One domino can fall, one bank, and then all the others can. Or with the pandemic, there's much more travel, so it spreads much more quickly, and so on. There just are more risks
Mm-hmm.
on a global level. It's never before has there been such a chance that the human race, not on purpose, but can really destroy themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You had terrible people before, um, but with Attila the Hun going round and burning a whole load of cities, but it doesn't really affect the whole planet, not in an existential way. So I feel there's a sort of moral side to showing up as well.
Yeah, I'm processing what you're
That's fine. But
I'm
there's a lot to digest there.
yeah, because everybody has um his own showing up. It's what I can hear you say is, and how it does enters me. And now I'm going to switch in Dutch because it's too difficult in English. hoe jouw visie over de urgentie om jezelf te laten zien bij mij binnenkomt, is vanuit uw eigen talent en vanuit uw eigen waarde om u daarin te laten zien. En is dat ten behoeden van de klimaat, ten behoeden van het planeet, maar ook gewoon wie jij bent. Dus op macroniveau, maar ook op microniveau. Van, zeker, dit gaat ook voor ondernemers, om als uitnodiging te nemen, hoe het bij mij binnenkomt als uitnodiging, is van, hey, laat u maar zien als ondernemer. Laat maar zien wie jij bent, want dat is de eerste stap om uw omgeving en in ruimere mate de wereld te verbeteren, ongeacht op welk levensdomein dat is, of dat nu ecologie is, of gezondheid, dat is hoe dat het bij mij binnenkomt. Je vertelt het heel groot, echt op macroniveau, en ik merk dat ik het mag vertalen naar microniveau, naar het ik, mijn plek innemen in de maatschappij. En dat er te durven staan. Dat is wat mij raakt in jouw verhaal.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, for sure, it starts off with oneself. But I don't think it's enough, actually. I don't think self-transformation is not enough anymore. It's necessary and wonderful, and it's what I help people with, but it's not sufficient.
Okay, what's then the next step?
Is to be aware of the existential problems and find one's place in that. Of course, everybody has a different, unique expression. I'm not saying everybody should go and, campaign for climate, for solutions to the global warming. And I don't go out, I'm not standing on the barricades for Black Lives Matter. Okay, that's not my way. No, I believe that in order to transform the world, the inner transformation, the self-transformation of individuals and groups does have to happen. So purely political action is not enough to save the world. But just inner work and self-transformation is also not enough.
Yeah.
It's both.
Yeah.
And so we've somehow got to find each other. That's why I'm so keen recently to work with politicians. I'm also going to be doing some work with mayors, burgemeesters, because I want to have some influence there. Not that I'm useless as a politician, but I think a kind of activism, which, as you mentioned, starts with and comes out of our own authentic expression, our own unique expression, absolutely. But we can't somehow just, again, keep it in our own little bubble.
No, we have to open. We have to open the doors of our homes and go out and show ourselves outside, and leave the masks behind.
Right. And you see one of the ultimate joys in life is standing up for a cause. So it's not just about altruism. It's not just to save the planet. My spiritual life for the first 25 years was entirely inner oriented. It didn't mean I didn't show up in my relationships or this or that, but it was a bit me in a way. And one needs that me. But at a certain point, in order to really feel fulfilled and for me to, in a way, feel my full power, I need to express it.
Yeah, express and expand. And the image I receive while you're talking is that when you tell about the me, is the self-centered person, not egoistisch, but centered to the self. And then when you tell about, I see expansion, and I see waves of influence going out. That's what I see when you tell about it.
That's nice. Yeah, that's a nice image. Yeah.
And while you are sending those waves out, and you don't have to do anything for it because it happens, because you're in the state of being there to show up, and to show that those waves affects people. And then you have the ripple effects.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's true. I think that's true. As long as we don't assume that if we just all meditate enough, the world will change.
It's in the action, and that is also for the entrepreneurship. Is
Yeah, sure.
you can have your talent, but if you don't put it in action to let the world show what you can do and who you are, there's no return.
Right. Yeah.
And that is what we have to do. And also, while you're talking, is I can see the image of, okay, Earth. I'm going to switch in Dutch again. De aarde is een duale planeet. Licht, donker, goed, slecht, zon, maan, man, vrouw, de dualiteit. En voor mij voelt het dat we in een transformerende periode komen van deze planeet, om die dualiteit te gaan overstijgen. Maar niet alleen overstijgen, maar echt dat getransformeerd wordt naar iets anders. En ja, iedereen heeft yin en yang in zich. Iedereen heeft daadkracht en de ontvangende kracht in zich. En als dat kan samensmelten, dan wordt die dualiteit opgelift. En ik hoor het ook in jouw verhaal, dat het is tijd om te verbinden in groep, om de existentiële problemen van onze planeet aan te pakken. Ook al hoef je niet op de barricades te gaan staan voor Black Lives Matters of Greenpeace. Ik ben ook geen barricadespringer. Maar het is wel belangrijk dat we die rimpeleffect, het beeld dat ik bij jou gekregen heb, die rimpeleffect, wel zijn werk laten doen. Door het toe te staan, door er acties in te nemen die helemaal kloppen met wie jij van binnen als spiritueel wezen bent. Makes sense what I'm saying?
Definitely. I mean, I'd want to go in, so certainly that last part. I mean, the thing about the duality, I mean, that's a big question. I'd need to sort of go into that deeper, because, you know, in a way, we don't want day and night to melt into each other. Otherwise, we'd have permanent twilight, which would be rather dull. So it's not that we don't want difference. You see, it's fine for me that there is a difference, and that there are men and women, and there's light and dark, so on and so on. But we also need to access the unity which is behind it.
Yeah, I have the image of the modern cars, the hybrids.
Okay.
It's the thing that connects is the power, and you have diesel or benzine or whatever, and you have electricity, and it's not the same. It's about duality, but they found a way to connect what you are saying, the things that is behind, to transform that duality in something united but separate, but still united in a car.
Exactly. And this is, to be honest, at the bottom of what you're saying, Linda, is, you know, one of the biggest, deepest, in my view, spiritual truths. You see, when we started with the multiple selves, and so who am I? So on the one hand, I'm James. Okay, James with a history, English, blah, 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 family, kids. So there's that whole personal thread, which is, of course, deeply important and precious. just as Linda's is and everybody else is. But that, for most people, that gives them the impression that the world is just full of separate selves doing their thing. So if you get into a train, you know, everyone's in their own little world and their earphones, and it feels like or looks like a whole load of separate selves. Mm. But through the waking up work, which is largely through the, you know, the various contemplative traditions, meditation, and so on, the self with the big S, you realize, oh my God, I'm not a separate self. I am not even just part of the whole, I am the whole. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge realization, even if you only have it for one moment. And so we have to hold that. So on the one hand, I have an individual self and I don't. And so that's a little bit what you're pointing to. So a very nice distinction is I am not, I'm not separate, but I am distinct. Mm-hmm. So the image that people often use is the wave on the ocean. The wave has a shape, but it's still just water. Yeah. And that's one way of looking at the self and how we combine unity and difference. Yeah. Does that sound a bit too philosophical?
No, it's like me, my body is the expression of the power of the universe. It's like I am part of the whole. I am. Mm. And the energy of the universe wants to have experiences. And so everybody is an expression of the universe who wants to go in the experience, because the universe, the course, the center, the source cannot have any experience.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I probably agree with that. Yeah, I think that's kind of how I see it too.
Yeah.
And so, this amazing thing is that, you know, we have a whole interior world, a sense of self that feels like me. You know, it's the most obvious thing in the world, mm-hmm. But it feels like we. Oh my God, there's a particular constellation of molecules in this tiny, 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 tiny corner of the universe that feels like me. Mm-hmm. It's got an inside. Wow.
Yeah, it's like I had some acting school. I am professional actor long time ago, and I learned to give an expression on a personality, op een uiting geven aan een personage vanuit mezelf, maar van binnenuit. In mezelf gaan zoeken, wat heeft het personage, wat heeft het toneelstuk nodig, opdat het geloofwaardig wordt gebracht. Het komt van binnenuit. Mm. En om dat neer te zetten, heb ik geleerd om afstand te nemen. Mm. Want mijn lichaam is de Muppet. En mijn innerlijke zelf, wat jij benoemt, van er is iets dat van mezelf is, een awareness, is de Muppet player.
Yeah, it's a nice image, and I think if we all had that sort of intimate detachment, as I call it, from our personality, personal
emotions,
story, because I don't always like the traditional Eastern views of detachment. I find them a bit dry. Mm-hmm. So I like the word intimate in there, intimate detachment. So you're still living, you're alive, and you feel and all that, but at the same time, there is a detachment.
Yeah.
as seeing it a bit like an actor. It's one of Shakespeare's most famous quotes: "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances." And so it goes on. So I think theatre's great training, actually, for how to live.
Yeah. And also, sometimes I am one with my emotions, and sometimes I can see myself express my emotions and then think about, all right, okay, uh-huh, okay, and now we're gonna stop. Okay. So and that's nice to feel the being one with the materia here on earth, but also have the distance. And then, the image I have of the Muppets and the Muppet player, it is in a microscopic way of what's going on in a macroscopic way of the energy of the cosmos.
Maybe. I mean, that's a wonderful idea. No, I agree. No, that's a beautiful idea.
Yeah. So, all right. We are entering the end of our very nice conversation.
Okay.
Yes, we are already some 40 minutes live, I think. I want to end with one question, that is, what kind of tip you can give to entrepreneurs, spiritual entrepreneurs, in the now we are living, and what is necessary to do what you have to do.
Right. So my tip for that is find your deepest longing, jouw diepste verlangen. And just go from there and trust it. And you won't get to it by thinking. Take a day in nature without your phone, whatever it takes, but what's your deepest longing? And trust that will take you in the right direction.
Thank you very, very, very much for this conversation. Ik ben heel benieuwd wat de live-kijkers en de replay-kijkers ervaren hebben bij dit interview. Ik wil heel graag de live-kijkers bedanken om er live bij te zijn. En graag ook nog even een aankondiging dat volgende week er een interview zal plaatsvinden in mijn eigen groep. En binnen 2 weken gaan we terug live op deze pagina met een volgende spirituele ondernemer. Heel erg bedankt. Thank you very much. En tot de volgende keer.
Thank you. Bye bye.